Hi, I'm Corbett Smith, sports writer here at the Dallas Morning News alongside Matt Wixon. We're here to talk a little bit about what happened in Week 3, which was a crazy week all across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then preview some games this week. Some really good games, district play starting up in earnest for a lot of districts this week. Matt, there were some crazy results. I don't think anybody was surprised by the result of the biggest game of the weekend, which was Cedar Hill beating Skyline 20-10, but really surprising how well Cedar Hill's defense is playing at this point. They've only allowed 34 points all season and have really looked strong.
Yeah, I think over the course of the years, Cedar Hill's had so many offensive weapons that we sometimes take their defenses for granted, and they've had some good defenses. But this year, with a young offensive line, they've really had to rely on that defense to make some plays. And against Skyline, they definitely did that. I mean, holding Skyline a pretty good offense, certainly got a lot of weapons, in DeLeon Ward and things like that, to just 10 points. That was a big performance for them.
As far as some of the surprises, I don't think anybody saw what happened with Waxahachie and Ennis. Maybe people who are fans of the Fighting Kitnas would say, yeah, we can maybe pull off an upset, but that was up. They were up 31-7 at halftime. Ennis made a game of it late, but it finished 38-20. Ennis beating its rival. I gotta say, Waxahachie jumped from 16-4 in our polls, and deservedly so from that win. But that's a shocking result over the defending state champs.
Yeah, that it was so lopsided, at least for most of the game. I mean, they jumped out to such a big lead. And maybe, rivals, sometimes that changes some things. But I think at this point, Waxahachie has proven that they are the real deal. We weren't sure before the season started. And what does that do to that district? You add yet another awesome team into that district. That's a monster district.
Talk about some results from that week. We had Euless Trinity beating Lancaster. No shame in what Lancaster did. They scored 14 points and were in it until late in the fourth quarter. But Mansfield Summit beating Mansfield High. That's a 5A team beating a 6A team. When you have Summit and Timberview and Lake Ridge and Waxahachie and Lancaster and Legacy, there's so many good teams in 14 5A. We'll talk about that here in just a second. They start district play this week. Another big surprise in my mind was Salina. How they took it to Argyle. Argyle, was pretty much slow getting out of the gate, and Salina wins a 10-point game at home. And you don't see very many teams coached by Todd Rogers give up 46, but that's exactly what Argyle did this week.
Yeah, Argyle has kind of been Salina's nemesis in recent years. Salina, because people have kind of thought, Salina's down. But that's because their expectations of Salina. Of course, they've won so many championships in that. But that win over Argyle, that's kind of the Salina that I remember, especially the way they grounded out. I mean, as many rushing yards as they had in that game. That's the kind of Salina that was dominant, until a few years ago. And they've still been really good in recent years, but Argyle has kind of been their kryptonite.
Right, and in a crazy district play debut in the Frisco District 9-5A, you had The Colony, who had really started slowly at 0-2. They ended up scoring 70 points against who I thought might be the district favorite in Frisco Heritage. Great performance by Rudy Rangel and his team, but it doesn't get any easier. They're going to have to play another tough opponent this week in Week 4, but what a debut for The Colony.
Yeah, I mean, we had them in our top 10 in the preseason rankings, then they lose 2, and then we're not sure about them. And they come out and score 70 points against Frisco Heritage, who, like you said, we thought was maybe the favorite in that district. I think that district is just a week-to-week district. It's going to be, and not a week district, I mean a week-to-week district, where one week it seems like this is the favorite, and the next week it's another. You got Frisco Centennial in there. You got Frisco Lone Star, which had a really nice win over Frisco Wakeland. I think it's not going to be any different than last year. When you come down to those last couple of weeks, we got those headaches from the playoff scenarios, and the coaches are like, "How we got to win by? Right. What do we got to do?" That's what that Frisco district, Frisco plus the Colony and Little Elm. That's what that district was last year and is this year.
There's a couple of really good games this week out of that district as well. Let's talk a little bit about Thursday, Friday action. Not many games on Saturday, just 3 involving area teams. But on Thursday night, you get The Colony playing Frisco, another tough opponent. Frisco with a nice win to start district play. You also get Frisco Centennial, who was on a bye week last week. They play Heritage. It's going to be tough for Heritage to start 0-2. Yeah, and then kind of get things going. But really interesting matchups there on Thursday night at the 2 Frisco stadiums. As far as the marquee matchup on Thursday, that's probably DeSoto going to face Cibolo Steel in Belton at Mary Hardin Baylor's new facility. That was a game that they almost lost last year. How important is it for DeSoto to have a really important, like a really impressive win over against a Steel team? What happens if they fall to 1-3?
Yeah, it takes away all the momentum they gained from beating South Oak Cliff. South Oak Cliff is a 5A school, but is a good one, and that was a really solid win for them. Of course, after their opening losses to Arlington Martin and IMG Academy, I think it's essential that they perform. And really, it's essential that they win to push themselves forward to get that momentum back to where they were thinking at the start of the year. Hey, we are a state champion contender. And they played two really tough teams those first 2 weeks. Martin, that was an inspired performance, and Martin is a good team, and we know about IMG Academy. And then that was a good win last week. I think, though, it's a lot like what we were talking about with the Colony. You get your big win, you got to follow it up. You got to keep that momentum going. I think that's definitely the case with DeSoto this week.
The state's biggest district, or at least the district with the largest teams in it, is District 6A, and you've got a Plano team that really kind of stumbled out of the gate. They were 2-0 and looking like one of the better teams in our area, and they end up losing to 0-2 Hebron. Hebron gets an interesting battle. They go to play at Flower Mound Marcus, but doesn't get any easier for Plano. They have to go to Allen. Allen's on a 46-game winning streak. That's going to be very tough in that crowded district. To potentially start off 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of both those teams, we'll give credit to Hebron first. That's a big win. You're going to have to come up with that win if you're going to get in the mix for the playoffs. And now they've got Marcus this week, which will be tough. For Plano, I don't expect them to beat Allen. I don't think Plano fans expect them to beat Allen. But at the very least, they need to come back and show some strength and gain a little bit of traction forward going to, I'm not sure who they play the following week, but it's going to be a tough game in that district. They got to show something because they're going to most likely be 0-2 in that district, and they're going to have to come out, guns blazing that following week.
West and East face off, and that could have huge playoff implications in that district as well. Talked a little bit about 14-5A and its myriad of difficulties. Lancaster and Lake Ridge face off this week in the debut of district play, and that could essentially decide the district race. I think right now those are the two favorites going in.
Yeah, they're the two favorites. I think they're 1-2 in our area rankings. But at the same time, that district is so deep. I don't know if you can say right now.
Right.
Oh, that's the big game, because there are going to be so many big games in that district. But with a district that deep, there's going to probably be the loser of this team or loser of this game may be in like week 8 or week 9 going, oh, that was the one we needed. But they're both both quality teams, obviously, and if the team that gets that win, that's a huge leg up getting into that district.
Another game to watch in 12-5A. You've got Rockwall Heath facing Mesquite Poteet. Both of those two teams really have been slugging it out for the district title. At least they did last year, and it should be a really impactful game when it comes to the district race. Well, there are a lot of good games this week, even though it's a light schedule. A lot of teams taking the break. They're on the bye week before district play starts in earnest for nearly all of our 5A and 6A teams a week from now, but certainly a lot of good games to go out and catch. From Wixon, I'm Corbett Smith. Thanks for watching.